So, hi everyone, welcome to the latest Tech Southwest Roundtable, when we're taking a dive into the Southwest Tech Analysis 2022 report by Whitecap Consulting, and joined by a great lineup of guests who were all part of that project. Caroline from Tansley Media, Dave from Deloitte, Stuart from Whitecap, Charlie from Sensinet, Andrew from University of Exeter, and of course Ben, who is part of Tech Southwest. And this week we're looking at talent, and it was one of the big areas in the report, and no surprise, it's highlighted some real interesting key challenges. I mean, it celebrates talent. It talks about the 14 universities in the region, and it talks about the diversity of tech and our strengths, but it also is very clear and obvious. It's a really tight labour market. It's inflating salaries. The impact of the shortage of expertise is significant, particularly for startups. There's some praise in there, of course, for our colleges and our universities and then the business engagement and courses, but there's also concerns around some of the disconnects and the challenges around interfacing with education. The average size of a tech company in the Southwest is pretty small, so a lot of them struggle for that. So on the plus side, it talks about a lot of growth, from 11 billion to 19 billion in the next 5 years, but that's potentially 120,000 roles, and that is a huge number for the Southwest, for any region to achieve, really. So that is the starting point, and I really want to get into the questions as quickly as possible. So I think, Stuart, we should come to you first, because you're the guy who kind of went around the region talking to people. So on this talent piece, what did you find around the challenges and opportunities, and is it a common theme across the region, or there's some variation around that?
Okay. Yeah, I mean, obviously it was no surprise that there's a shortage of talent and in technical skills, and that shortage is sort of pushing up salaries, which have been rising pretty quickly. But there were some interesting facts that came to light in a lot of the conversations and the research. You already mentioned the 14 universities, and I think it's 170k students that the universities are pushing out. But one of the key things that came across, and I was certainly pleased to hear, was how keen the universities and colleges are to engage with industry, and they came in for a lot of praise, particularly the colleges, and how flexible and prepared they were to adjust their courses, meet with industry needs, and that was actually very true across the whole region. We also saw, I suppose it's fair to say, some, I wouldn't say confusion, but uncertainty about the large influx of people coming to the region. Now that obviously there's a lot more remote working allowed by various companies. We weren't entirely sure, in fact, no one was entirely sure whether this is adding to the workforce available in the region, or given they're working remotely, whether how many of the prior workforce localized here is working remotely. So that's still an unknown factor.
Yeah, we're still playing that out, I guess, in terms of that people moving in, but also, but are they looking for careers and career pathways within the region? Are they sticking with what they had before? And also people who are already based in the region with more options and flexibility about who they choose to work for. And if they're working for a London company, that's not going to show up in the Southwest GEVA figures in terms of contribution to the economy, even though they might be based in Devon, Cornwall, anywhere else. Thanks, Stuart. I mean, Andrew, your position at the University of Exeter, what we're saying is quality and quantity. The report says we need both when it comes to talent. We've got a higher number of tech and engineering graduates, the report found, than the national average. But are they sticking around? Are there obvious career pathways for them? We have a very interesting kind of I suppose definition of tech companies in the Southwest. The average size is pretty small. So are they just not seeing that, or are some of them staying around?
I mean, when you look at the data for what happens to graduates, we find that over time, then the increasing numbers are actually sticking around in the region. They're sticking around for longer as well. We're never going to be able to say that, you do your degree here, you have to stay here. If they come from somewhere else, if they're eager to go back, then fair enough. You can't really stop them. But what we try to do is to offer as many opportunities as we can so they get experiences with businesses. So you're right that an awful lot of the tech sector is represented by quite small businesses. So it's about how do we build the relationship with organisations like that. And what we're eager as an institution to do, and I'm sure others are as well, is to place our students within small businesses. So you get a chance, if you like, try before you buy, etc. But that's a really good way of entering into something which isn't necessarily a huge commitment, but you get a chance to take on a graduate. So we're eager to have conversations with any businesses in the tech sector who'd like to do that and would like to take that on as an opportunity. So placements is a real way.
The challenge there is a lot of tech companies we talk to say, we don't know how to engage. We don't know how to interface with universities. We're too busy. We're really client facing, and maybe that's a poor excuse if they want to sort out their talent strategy. It's not good enough. But what do we do for those companies, or how do we shift their behavior or make it easier?
Well, have people within universities who are very dedicated to actually doing that kind of work. So we're happy to have that conversation. And you can either go through me, or you can just have a casual look around the website. We'll find fairly quickly the routes in that you can go if you're an employer. So we've got all kinds of ways of engaging, whether it's placements, whether it's internships, whether or not you're looking for a degree apprenticeship, which is really, really good way of moving, especially as actually our region has an underrepresentation still of students going to university compared to the rest of the country. So there are very good, young people there with great skills and with great ambition who are not necessarily choosing to go to university, but they could be exactly the kind of people that you could be taking on at 18, and will be, working with you, but also coming to us as well to learn the data science skills, because we offer degree apprenticeships now across quite a large element of the tech sector, including data science itself.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Andrew. So let's jump to a tech company. So Charlie, so SensorNet, specialising in cyber.
Yep.
Where do you find the talent, and what's the secret to keeping it in a tight market? If you wanted to tell us, it's got to be. Isn't it?
Yeah, I don't think there's a magic bullet to finding it. I think you have to take a blended approach across all the roles that you need in an organisation like ours. Obviously, there's the very technology-focused ones, and there's more sales, marketing, and alliances. The area that I work in. I think the need to recruit people earlier in their career is something that small companies are not necessarily very good at initially, for a couple of reasons. I think firstly, there is a little bit of confusion about how a small organization, certainly at the beginning, on the threshold of doing something really exciting, could engage with the university, and then do they have the capability to invest the time in for example, an apprentice? I think those are excuses, and it's because they've not done it before and I think there's a bit of the ball needs to start rolling with that, and we're certainly looking at doing that really strongly now. In terms of retaining people, I suppose, especially when you're growing fast, the cost of losing an employee is massive. If you think about the investment that you put in, not just during the recruitment process, but then also the onboarding. If tragically after 6 months you lose someone, that's awful. But if they're not staying for a long period of time with you, and you're not getting maximum value from that, it's really costly. So I think my approach to getting people on board is making sure that the processes seem to be really two-way with the candidates. I think a lot of organizations get the candidates to pitch up and say and explain why they would be good for your organization. But actually, for small tech companies, you've also got to sell the vision of where you're going, and get them really committed. And then obviously, if you do end up recruiting them, then making sure that becomes a reality through their career, and they really feel that they can make a difference. I've often found that having that two-way conversation really, the really good people want to know that they can make a difference. They want to understand how they can make that difference. And so making that a sort of bi-directional process, rather than why don't you just tell me what you can do for me conversation, really works.
Yeah.
Very well.
And that we need well-rounded tech companies. It's all very well having the technical capability, the product service, but these are people businesses just like any other business actually, and that is really, really key to we want these companies to grow and succeed. Thanks, Charlie. So Dave, coming to you from a Deloitte point of view, one of the things the report says that diversifying the talent pool, we need to do it. We need new pathways into tech careers. That's going to be key if we're going to keep pace, or drive this growth forwards. Is that especially hard when tech companies are competing against each other, or is that just the law of the jungle? In terms of the best ones, the winners, will win out, and those that are not mindful of a talent strategy, thinking about their people, are going to lose?
The first thing I'd say is that there is a very deep set structural market failure around talent. The system simply does not produce enough people with the right skills. The people with the right skills don't always have pathways into work. And too often people that have skills are not ready for the workplace. And that's quite a knotty, deep set challenge that no single organisation is capable of solving on its own. So we do have to work together. A regional talent war where the talent pool is fundamentally too small is just a losing game. The best thing you can achieve is to drive up salary costs in a way that's completely unsustainable and, quite frankly, creates misplaced expectations in the workforce. The real talent battle, I think, is between regions or between the UK and global opportunities. And to make our region an attractive place for people to settle and to work, they need to see a holistic set of opportunities. We need to have liquidity in the marketplace. People will move around between jobs. People don't join a company and treat it as a job for life. But we want to keep that liquidity within our region where we can, and embrace the idea that we will create opportunities for our talented people, and they will use those opportunities to open up new pathways for themselves. And Charles' comment, I completely agree with. There's a huge cost to losing people. There's an even bigger cost to chaining people to a desk and building up resentment in the workforce.
Absolutely.
So from a solution point of view, we need a training engine, a skilling engine, the like of which we've never had before. And that is going to involve HE, FE and private sector providers working together. We need to train people to be ready for work, not ready to pass exams. And they are not the same thing. And I know the universities in particular have made huge strides in that, but too many graduates are not ready for the workplace. We need to be way more holistic in the way we think about the talent pool. Older people later in their careers make great business analysts, they're great service designers, they're great at listening, they have huge empathy. I think there's an awful lot of nonsense in the system around millennials and young people and the skills they have, which often is at the expense of spotting talent and potential more broadly in the workforce. So we need to really open our eyes. And where we participate in training schemes, some of you will know we're very actively involved in the IOC and various other schemes that are about reskilling, but the end points are not correct. The end point tends to be an individual getting an interview or getting a job. The end point needs to be that individual is thriving 6 months or 12 months after being recruited. The skills people leave training schemes with have a really short half-life. So individuals need to be resilient, they need to be inquisitive, they need to have the tools to keep learning. And employees, particularly those that aren't used to recruiting diverse employees, need to be better supported to ensure that the people that have the skills have a good experience. So I think the end point needs to be interview or first job plus 6 months, plus 12 months. And it's in everyone's interest to support people for longer. So the short answer to your question is it's in our mutual self-interest to grow the talent pool and to recognise there will be some cannibalisation and some movement between companies in the region. And ultimately, that will be a good thing, even if in the short term, it's something we would naturally want to resist.
Yeah, and I suppose shift. The more tech companies that can understand that, and we shift them, give them the reasons to shift, and show them the evidence almost in terms of to play their part.
Sorry, the final thing is, more of us need to recruit attitude over experience. Some of the most talented people, their talents won't show up as a set of gold star certificates, etc. It might show up as an attitude, a spark, where it's our job to invest in those people and bring out the latent talent, give them a chance.
Yeah, I was just about to say, you know, there are a lot of people with very not everything in the tech market requires real technical skills, and a lot of the transferable skills that I've been recruiting for in my alliances role. You know, these are not deeply skilled technical people. They are relationship people. They are customer success managers. Those sorts of people. They can come from any walk of life, any age, any ethnicity. You know, we're not constrained by technical certifications there. So we look very broadly, and we really do look for attitude, adaptability, inquisitiveness, all those bits, all those sorts of things, because that's what you need in a small organization.
And we need more tech companies to go on that journey, and the results will become clear, won't they? Yeah. So turning to you, Caroline, as a tech marketing agency and a brand expert, you know, how should tech leaders, having heard that, be shaping their approach to, you know, it's about attracting and retaining talent, isn't it? But also, you know, it's not just the technical skills, it's far broader than that.
Yeah. So a lot of people we are talking to at the moment obviously also see this as a huge issue, and many companies coming to us to help with talent acquisition, whereas before it was all, you know, help us achieve growth through clients. And they now realise it needs to be a big consideration for their brand and marketing strategy, and actually talent needs to be an audience segment within their overall strategy, with possible sub-segments within that, depending on the type of roles and skills and so on required. But bearing in mind all those points that David's just made about the fundamental issues out there regarding skills and talent issues, we tell clients that it is critical for them to research their talent market and create the appropriate value proposition for the audiences, which needs to be rounded and include things like the ethos and morals of the company, the types of work and impact it will have, in addition to the obvious sort of salary, perks and benefits, etc., which people traditionally think of when they're promoting job roles, etc. It's also important to think about them telling the message for the talent audience and the types of content they engage with and how to reach them. So Gen Zs aren't going to hang out and engage in the same way as other generations. So parents potentially looking for flexibility and security. Older generations may be looking for a new challenge and a way of utilising the wealth of skills and knowledge they've gained throughout their career. So I think this point's already been made, but it's, you know, I think there's often a huge focus on new talent, but there's lots of existing potential talent out there as well. We encourage clients to research and to get good insights and develop relationships with those in tech recruitment who should have their finger a bit more on the pulse with what the talent market is looking for. And as Charlie mentioned, as with clients, the cost of acquiring new talent is likely much more of a financial strain than retaining people. So having a strong focus on your people retention strategies is absolutely critical for not just financial reasons, but things such as brand reputation too.
Yeah. So I offer a quick comment on this, and reflecting on this conversation, I think we're talking about managing a problem. And when you've got a problem to manage, I think you tend to approach it in a certain way. You know, I don't have enough people in my team and I'm desperately clinging on to the ones I've got. But we could think of this as an opportunity. There's a massive demand exceeding supply opportunity, which gives us the opportunity to create life-changing opportunities for people that have not had an easy life journey so far. It's an opportunity to create a dramatically more diverse workforce that brings new ideas, fresh thinking. It's an opportunity to reinvent the workplace and create more flexible working patterns for parents or carers, etc. And I just wonder if we sort of step into this is actually an opportunity. What can we do that's just awesome? Yeah, it doesn't trivialize the problem, but we might think about it in a different way. What can we do right now that we wouldn't even have dreamt of 5 years ago or 10 years ago, but right now we can be open-minded.
And that is, you know, that is the exciting, you know, tech is in itself exciting. You know, we are talking about a sector where exciting stuff happens, where inventions are made, where innovation happens, where world-changing things can be created and delivered. And, you know, that surely is part of, you know, we need to capture people's imagination. You know, it's almost saying today, it's not easy to sort of, you know, in terms of the role models and the different types of jobs, you know, there's a whole variety, you know, it's almost saying engineer, doctor, soldier, police officer, etc., etc. Tech is all sorts of wonderful different things, and we've got to do better at sort of telling that story. You know, Ben, would you into that diversifying? I suppose that's around pipeline, junior, mid, and senior. It's across the board, right?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of points here, and actually just picking up on David's point about looking at things differently as well, is that, you know, although be it the report identifies that we need how many 125, 150,000 new roles over the next sort of 5 years or so, they're roles, they're not necessarily jobs, and they're also they're vacancies. So, you know, the whole thing about technology and in the wider economy is about improving efficiency and about improving productivity. So these are, in a current state of play, they're vacancies that are going to be created. It's how we reduce that number of vacancies as well as create new jobs, and it's how we potentially reskill people out there from jobs that become automated or become, you know, the whole sector that we're in. You know, technology is about, like I said, about removing vacancies in certain industries and creating opportunity in others. So, you know, and turning to your point around mid and senior management, you know, anecdotally, and I think when I speak to small companies and tech companies, is that they're crying out for a bit of grey hair and a bit of experience. A lot of these startup companies are young founders, but they don't have business experience, and they're looking for mid-range and senior people to, albeit they may not be have the technical skills, but they have the business skills, and it's, you know, so it's about attracting mid and senior level people often back into the economy. They may have stepped out, they may be ex-entrepreneurs themselves, but have been through the cycle, maybe in a different industry or same industry, it's just being disrupted, who have a lot of things to add. We just maybe need to reskill them, re-engage with those people to create that pot of people who can guide those companies. And it may be part-time, it may be non-exec, it may be, you know, all these things that we can bring people into the market, just using different ways. I mean, a lot of the conversation has been about graduates and how we create new talent. You know, the people coming out of universities and coming out of colleges, and are they, you know, employee ready? We've got a load of people out there who've got loads of experience. We just need to bring them back into those companies and give those opportunities, because they can be real guiding lights to those businesses. And
I think that's I think that's a really good point. And if you look at the kind of latest labour market statistics, you'll see that actually there's been a regular drift out of the labour market since almost the beginning of COVID. People who are older workers who have a lot to contribute, but they've just kind of disappeared off because perhaps they don't feel safe at work, or they've started to feel that actually they're quite happy not working now. If you look at if you think about 2030, almost everyone who's going to be working in 2030 is already working now. So if you're thinking about the skills that you need for your organization, then an awful lot of that is actually conversations you need to be having around skills utilization and around training of people who are already in work, or what kind of skills can you get to people who are already in your organization and actually bring them on. So I think that's a really important point that Ben made.
Yeah, I think, sorry, Andy, just coming back on that, I think you're right. I think, you know, there's a lot of people of my age, etc., who've kind of been through the whole COVID experience and decided that, you know, I don't want to work full time. I don't want to do what I was doing before. I quite like the flexibility and the freedom I've discovered over the last couple of years, simply, you know, because it's been forced upon me. But they're still out there, and they have a lot to add. And then going back to the point that Charlie and Dave were making earlier was around, you know, that flexibility. You know, we can provide them with all different ways of working. It doesn't have to be full time. It doesn't have to be in an office. It doesn't have to, you know, but they can still add significant value into the economy and into the sector. In a different way. And we just have to embrace that different way of working, and you know, that's not traditional.
Let's come to Dave next, and then Charlie. So I think, Dave, you were going to say something, and then we'll come to
just reflecting on Ben's comment. Actually, I think it's as hard for somebody in their 20s to become a chairman of a large business as it is for somebody in their 50s to become a business analyst. And I think we need to be very careful when we mix sort of seniority and business experience with age, because, you know, I do think we need to have 50-year-old BAs and analysts doing really basic jobs where, you know, they're not there in a senior capacity to advise. They're just there to listen differently to a less worldly wise experienced person might doing the same thing. And we're just not open-minded enough. I don't think any graduate, any analyst program would recruit anybody much older than mid-20s. And despite the fact that's unlawful, I just don't think these systems are open-minded. It'd be really uncomfortable for somebody in their 50s to be sat in a room full of 20-somethings learning how to do a business analyst job. Unless we shift our mindset, we are massively narrowing the addressable talent pool.
I agree. I think conversely as well, I think there are a lot of people of our generation who don't believe they have something valuable to a tech company from a business perspective, and that is about if I'm looking for I don't know, an alliances manager, the age of that person actually doesn't matter. In fact, the more mature people often have more gravitas, etc. But I am still going to be looking for that person from within my competitors and the sort of immediately surrounding organizations, because that's immediately where you go to look for CVs. But in the same way, I'm not getting inbound requests from, I don't know, people in engineering firms or wherever who've done alliances roles at engineering firms, because I think there's a little bit of mystique or maybe fear. I don't think fear is probably the right word, but about jumping from one sector into another with those transferable skills.
So could I be a little provocative then? And it is around language. I mentioned the Institute of Coding earlier. I'll have this conversation with the leadership. Who wants to join an institute? How exciting is that? Tech Southwest, the language we use is forbidding. I always think, get people to fall in love with the problem. How excited would you be if you could make a positive impact on climate, or if you could reduce air pollution, or if you could address the housing crisis and reduce homelessness? People get excited about being part of solving a problem. And when you say, oh, by the way, the skills you've accumulated are relevant to that, and by the way, if you add a little bit of a tech pixie dust, you will be able to solve that problem faster. You take people on a journey.
Yeah.
And I think the fact that we're talking about tech skills, I've never heard a person say to me, Dave, I'd love to be a digital, Illuminati, or I'd love to be a tech. Maybe some people do, but people just don't identify themselves in that way. And it's not about teaching them the language we use. It's about us adopting language that is more user-friendly.
Caroline, on that, so this comes down to storytelling, yeah? We've got to tell a better story.
Yeah, and as I mentioned before, it is all around, what means, what's value for people, and what they care about, which is, those impact projects and how they're going to change the world. So yeah, exactly. I totally agree. It's around language and how we communicate, and also culture and so on as well. But yeah, absolutely.
The other problem that the people making decisions around talent are middle-aged and above, and in the Southwest generally white and perhaps male. So when we put it out there, we use LinkedIn. When we put it out there, how many of us are advertising on TikTok right now for the next generation of talent? How many of us are actually using TikTok? Some clever brands will be doing that because they'll want people with to attract different audiences in different ways. And so I think we've got to change, haven't we, and open up our.
I think I was going to say we've touched on diversity, and that is a massive area of potential. There simply isn't enough women in tech. There aren't enough ethnic minorities in tech. The report showed that we were slightly better than other regions, but that's not actually anything to celebrate. We're just less worse than anyone else. So I think there's a massive potential. As someone pointed out, if we could just get women in tech up to near parity with male, the problem's solved.
Yeah, right. Yeah, one of the things that scares me is just it's so huge, and there's so many stakeholders. In terms of the tech companies, the people want to engage with, the kind of the universities, the colleges, the training providers, liaising with other sectors, almost in terms of spreading the net. We talk about the challenges. We talk about what we need to do. I suppose it's the how, isn't it? The how. What is the action plan to actually to deliver that? And is this a regional approach? Is it a national approach? Is it a local approach? Is it or is it probably all those things? But I suppose that's the big thing, isn't it? In terms of where are the games to collaborate on this in certain areas around education, others, and because there's only so much time in the day. So what should we? If there were 3 things we could do better that might help go some way to sort of fixing this, what would they be? This is the really hard bit. But I think we should look at it.
I think if I was going to throw one in, I would bang the drum, which AT Ready does, bang the drum for FE, because we've got something in the Southwest now, in my own particular area called the Southwest Institute of Technology. It was one of the first. It now has the opportunity to apply for a Royal Charter to award its own qualifications. It's very keen on doing things around tech. Its members are very, very keen to do things around tech, and conversations that you could be having as a sector, certainly within the kind of peninsular area. I think that's a really good opportunity, because you have the kind of the main universities here, Exeter and Plymouth, are both keen to be a part of growing that and working with that. And you also have the colleges which are a part of that. And it's really great that you actually have FE and HE working together. And I think that is a real opportunity there, and that's something that we could be seizing. So that's one that I would kind of suggest.
I would add to that I'm a big fan of the T-level qualifications that
seems to have mixed views from people I've spoken to. Some people say that it doesn't work, and some people are sort of using it and using it well.
Well, they're literally only just come out, so I'm not sure how we can have feedback saying they don't work. What certainly the intent is to blend, that balance of industry exposure, the apprenticeships and the academic learning. So I've been doing a little bit of work with Western College around those, and from my perspective, they look like a good platform to build on, and a certain improvement from where we are. But I do think it's too early to pass comment on how good or not they'll be.
So if those are 2 of the 3 that we're allowed to make, those are obviously focused at the bottom of the top of the funnel, obviously, or the bottom of the funnel. I mean, my 3rd would really be focus. I think to build diversity on every axis higher up the funnel, it's got to be around focusing on recruiting for attitude and aptitude from a broader, just fishing in a broader pond for your talent, and looking for those transferable skills. Because I've personally been successful with that in 2 or 3 of the roles I've recruited in the last 18 months, and it works well.
Yeah, and that's it. And if that pipeline, young people are making decisions at 16, or making decisions at 18, and it sets them on a certain course at that point, and then if we start making assumptions, well, I'm not going to look at humanities because I need someone, that's just one slice of it, isn't it? And companies are making those decisions. You talk to a tech company, well, we need computer science students, and we'll take them from Plymouth Uni, and that's about it. And there's not enough of them.
I have a zoology degree.
I can tell.
Is it the smell?
I knew it. Could I be a bit cheeky and suggest a wrapper, not a 4th thing to add to the 3, but maybe an enabler? There is something about activation here. And I love the TikTok idea, actually, because that's a just do it kind of a thing. If we amongst us could pick, 2 or 3 thematic areas, and I know that the region is very broad, but maybe it's green tech or renewables or fintech or cyber, and say, why don't we just run a viral TikTok-esque campaign to make it really cool, where the focus isn't come and work for company A or company B. The focus is, if you want to be part of this movement, come to the Southwest. And there are a myriad of companies that will create, large and small, early and mature, that you'll have a ball and just give it a go. And maybe we should do a TikTok campaign, if that campaign's the right word. I'm not down with the kids yet. A TikTok thing, and maybe we should do a LinkedIn thing, and just have a look at the 2, and just see if the stereotypes, the limiting self-policing we have, see if they hold true. We could commit to do that right now, and get it done in the next fortnight. It doesn't have to be huge.
I've written down something very similar. I've just put create a campaign, give it a go, something that around change, create a movement. So some of the words that you've just said, David.
Why don't we call it give it a go, rather than come and be a techie, or come and be a coder, or come and be a ethical hacker, or whatever it is. Just give it a go. If you want to get involved in making the world a better place, come and give it a go in the Southwest.
How about change the world?
Yeah.
Ooh.
So and we're trying to bottle that buzz. When I first stepped into Bristol Robotics Lab, or when I first went to the Innovation Centre Exeter, or when you look at the entries to Textile Festivals, 250 entries, you're like, God, look at that company there. They're building artificial reefs to coral reef stuff, and they're doing amazing stuff around the world. And it started with 2 of them 4 years ago, and now there's 22 of them. And and you hear these, you find these things, and it's like, I didn't know, I just didn't know. And I'm helping to run Tech Southwest, and I didn't know. So what chance have people outside it got to understand the opportunity, the excitement, the journeys they can go on? That feels like a fundamental that we have to solve.
Yeah, I mean, there's a huge piece around in the previous roundtable we had last week. There's a huge piece around here about showcasing. And you're right. It's what do we focus on, and what do we bring on? But then it's how we not only showcase within the region, but how we showcase and attract talent from outside the region. How do we attract people into into the FE, into the Southwest, and how do we do that? But so there is, we've got to do something about showcasing. I think the big issue is, I'm thinking it always is the case with things that we're talking about, sort of a cross-regional issue or an issue of this size, is coordination. How do we all get together to do something about it? We all know what the issues are, and we all know what the problems are, and we can talk about them, and I will have different solutions.
Well, on that,
so how do we do it?
Southwest, we just carried on, and we kind of ignored people who didn't want to play. So at the start, before it existed, there were consultation events from Engine Shed, in Bristol, in Exeter, Plymouth, Innovation Centre, Poole and Cornwall. We said, do you want a regional tech cluster? And most people said, yeah, I think so. I thought it was going to be about building a brand. And they said, no, it's just about just joining the dots, working out who we are. And some people said, no, it'll never work. We don't talk to each other. Exeter and Plymouth don't get on. Bristol and Bath have a bit of a resentment. Cornwall won't speak to anyone. Somerset is a bit confused about its identity. All these things came out, but everyone said, we're not London, and we love doing tech in the Southwest. So it's like, okay, well, let's, and then those people who were kind of not into the idea just sort of fell away. And when, you can't coordinate everything, can you? You've got to find the doers, the ones who say, yes, I'm willing to give this a go because I can understand the benefits, within my organization and beyond. Those are the players that we want, and a diverse mix of those kind of players, because the population of 170,000 tech workers, 17,000 companies, and all the infrastructure around that. You don't need them all necessarily. You just need some key players to start the thing. Tech Southwest with
absolutely. No, I think it's spot on. I think it's spot on, Dan. I mean, yeah, we can't involve everyone, and everyone won't want to be involved. But I think it's a case of okay, and Dave's idea and Caroline's idea around this campaign, that's brilliant. It needs coordination, it needs to be run, and it needs funding actually as well, which is the other thing.
Volunteering.
Yeah. Well done, Caroline.
Be involved, but I need to pay for it. I was just going to say, as I said last week, we need an action plan for the action plan. I'm all about actions. I'm sorry, yeah. I have to say that this is really great.
One of the findings in the report on the ecosystem area, it says we're really good at collaborating in the Southwest in terms of there's a lot of talking. But the areas where it's more action-based, the outcomes driven is where we need to get to, and that's happening within certain sectors and it's happening in certain areas. But that's the kind of piece we've got to get to. So I think on that point we should wrap up. Caroline, you have to dash.
Nice to see you all. Cheers.
Yeah, thanks, Caroline. Thank you, everyone. A great discussion again, and we're going to try and do more of these to keep these topics going, keep the conversations going, encouraging views and comments below on the YouTube channel, or if you're viewing this on different platforms, do speak to us, talk to us. We're looking for people to help and collaborate with this as we kind of form the task force around some of this work from the regional report. And so and I just want to thank again you guys in terms of Whitecap Consulting, Deloitte, University of Exeter, Sensenet, Core Blue couldn't be here, Astley Media, and NatWest, but also personally thanks to everyone, Stuart, Ben, Charlie, Dave, Andrew, and Caroline as well, for just making it a lively debate. I think we know, the great thing is we know the challenges, we know what we need to do. It is now the doing it, which is the hardest bit, but we're not going off in different directions within the tech sector. We just need to make it happen. So thanks, everyone.
All right.
Cool. Right, we'll stop the paper. Brilliant. Thank you so much for being part of that. And it is a really interesting one. And, I like the practical points at the end here.